Hey everybody, welcome to SPP. So this was a fun episode because we knew. I mean, this is the way this works. So we have showrunners for every episode, meaning that you're in charge of it. You have to write the show notes. If there's a guest, you want to talk to them, figure out what you're going to ask them. And this is a Dave show.
Over there.
It was a Dave show, and all I knew was that we were having Jay Thorn on to talk about creativity and stuff. And then I started seeing well, hold on, there's 6 other people coming. And I was like, whoa, okay. But Dave's on it.
We needed to upgrade our Zoom account.
Right. So before the show, Dave's like, hold on, I gotta find the email. I gotta figure out what the show is about.
This is 10 minutes ago.
Right. He still hasn't found it. So we're like, well, they're gonna come, so we might as well just start the show. So do you want to start? Dave's something cool. Dave something cool can be if he finds the email. That can be something cool. So you and I should just go ahead and go first, Sean.
All right. I hope he doesn't want to chime in on my something cool because he's got emails to find over there.
Fuck you.
All right. So my something cool is a new Netflix show called 13 Reasons Why.
The show's so good you'll want to kill yourself.
Yeah, it's really good. It was Cindy's turn to pick something, and I didn't know about this show. She heard about it at yoga or something. I don't know. But she said 13 Reasons sounds really good, and let's try that. And apparently there's some controversy around the show, which I can totally imagine. It was based on a book, and I want to read the book. It seems very, very well spun. It's a mystery. So there's basically this girl kills herself, and she leaves 13 cassette tapes. And each episode is tape 1, side A, tape 1, side B, on and on.
By the way, she totally stole my funeral idea. When I die, I'm leaving behind videos for people why you disappointed me.
I can't wait. So,
but it's going to be 100. It's going to be 100 reasons why.
It's like in Seinfeld with the Festivus, where there's the airing of grievances. That's what Dave's funeral is going to be like.
So there's 13 stories, and each one is one of the people who contributed to her wanting to kill herself. And the argument is all about, very logically, is the show glamorizing suicide? And I want to see it, and I'm sure I'll have an opinion. And but it's an amazing show. I really am interested. We're 5 episodes in, and I'm totally invested. It does a lot of things really, really well. So anyway, I'll have more to say about it next week after I actually watch it. But 5 episodes in, I totally recommend it.
Mine is sort of knowing your superpowers. So we had a show a little while ago where I talked a little bit about this, but I'm increasingly realizing it as we do more and more stuff in the company. And I think that realizing what is in your nature and what it is that you do really well is very important to sort of optimizing what you do in your business. If you're working with other people or collaborating, or you're just by yourself. So let me describe what I mean here. So we've said for a while internally that I am an articulator. I do that in the stories, but I also do it in the business. So if Sean has an idea, it's my job to say what all the pieces of that idea are, and how would this work in this specific way, and what if we twisted it this direction or the other? Or Sean will give me basic beats, and then I will fill in the details, and well, it happened in this way, and let me explain it. I like to explain and articulate. I also like to distill things down. That's something. Give me the bottom line, right? Like you'll see on the podcast episodes, if we're talking about a big topic, every once in a while, I think I jump in and I say, so I think the bottom line is this. It's sort of like the too long didn't read paragraph, right? It's this one thing is what we're looking at. But specifically in what we've been doing lately, it's focus. So I think that this is going to be common to a lot of people, but in my particular case, I like to know what are the 2 or 3 things that I should be paying attention to, not what is everything that I should be paying attention to. We were talking about this some internally with some of the people at the company. And I think that a lot of us, since we're entrepreneurs and we're generally rogues anyway, is we tend to, Christine calls it all the things. There's all the things, you need to keep track of all these details. But keeping in mind a few focus areas is really important. So I write, I manage, there's 2 or 3 other things I won't go into. And just knowing that those things, then I can funnel anything else into it. So I think that knowing your own style, I realize this is kind of an empty something cool. Well, I guess I discovered mine. That's what's cool. But I almost feel like you should take some time to invest and learn yourself and what it is that you do best so that you can lean into it in your business. Because until I started leaning into these things, I kind of didn't know where I was going. So anyway, that was that, for what it's worth.
Hello.
Did Johnny freeze? I think Johnny froze.
Yeah, no, I'm here. You guys froze for me, so I don't know if you can still hear me.
All right, so thank you for Heather for sending. Thank you to Heather for sending me the email. Today's topic.
Heather now letting us know what our shows are about.
That's fantastic.
Professionalism is job number 5.
Dave, you're so fantastic.
Creativity and getting out of your comfort zone. Basically, we were talking with Jay Thorn back in January, and you can't really expect me to remember anything from January. But basically, Lindsay Broker, who is now here, Zack Bohannon, and Joanna Penn were on a train ride to NOLA where they were going to collaborate on a book together. And it sounds like the beginning of a joke, really.
I was just going to say a mystery. Who murdered whom? But Joanna's not here. She must be the dead.
Poor little Indian.
Yeah.
So now they're all here, and how did it go? Well, first of all, how do you all decide?
Dave is so unprepared.
No, I'm not unprepared.
To all of you for this show that Dave knew that he was running.
Sean's an asshole. How did you all decide to do something like this, and why would you ever get on a train with anybody?
Well, hey guys, what's up?
Hey Jay.
So I guess you're asking me to kick this thing off, huh?
Well, it was your idea. Better because Sean and I don't have any fucking idea what's happening.
And neither does Dave, to be fair.
Yeah, I told Dave. He said, he was trying to fish around for information. He said he wanted to be somewhat professional. I was like, why start now?
It's a bad move.
All right, so I'll give you guys.
Jay actually said in the email back to me, he said, "Don't worry, you don't have to say a word the entire episode. We'll take care of the whole thing. So we're just gonna sit back and relax." And he said, like, I'm an awesome podcaster and I'm better than you guys, and I'm gonna deliver information to your audience in a way that you guys cannot. So now that I put all this pressure on you, go right ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Great. All right. No problem. I guess we could start with sort of the overview, assuming that if people are listening and they don't know what we did, it might be a good idea to kind of just give a quick summary. Does that sound like a good place to start?
You're the boss.
Dave?
Yes. Yeah. And tell people what NOLA is, especially people not in the U.S. that don't know.
And NOLA is the abbreviation for New Orleans, Louisiana. And what we, Lindsay Broker, Joanna Penn, Zack Bohannon, and I met in Chicago on a Sunday afternoon, and we took an Amtrak overnight train down to New Orleans. And once we arrived in New Orleans, we spent about 5 days there first drafting a collaborative book that we then published about 3 weeks later.
That's awesome.
And tell us what the title of the book is.
Oh yeah, it's American Demon Hunter Sacrifice is the title of the book.
Awesome.
It's also the name of Dave's autobiography.
And can you tell us, like, why that title? Is it was it trying to hit very specific marketplace attention?
Yeah, part of it was, and I'm sure we'll get into some of the details, and hopefully Zack and Lindsay will kind of jump in here and add some flavor to this. But the idea was we were going to write a story in my American Demon Hunters world, because that way we didn't have to start from zero. We didn't have to create a whole cast of characters. We didn't have to create this world. We had agreed that we were not going to do any story prep ahead of time. And so when we got together in Chicago, that was when we were going to start plotting and looking at the story arc. And Joanna, I think it was Joanna's idea to write it in my American Demon Hunters world, so that we weren't planning the story ahead of time, but at least we had some of the rules in place. And so that's where the title comes from.
Yeah, we actually only had one meeting before we even did this. We had one Skype session and a few emails passed back and forth, and that was it. I mean, other than that, it was a pretty clean slate, other than knowing that we were going to write in Jay's already established American Demon Hunters world. That was it. So
how did you divide writing duties? Like, how was the project architected from world building down to final draft?
Well, we started we started with nothing, and part of the challenge that we decided to take upon ourselves was to not do a lot of prep work. And so Joanna being the control freak that she is, that she'll admit to, when she got to Chicago, she immediately found this crazy museum of old medical instruments and different things like that, and she found a skull that had a hole drilled in the forehead. And
Dave has one of those.
And the medical equipment. Sounds like right up my alley.
And she kind of crafted the story or the inciting incident, but really the story was kind of built upon that. And she sort of took creative control of the major story arc. And then we all wrote from different characters' POVs. And the other parameter that we put on it that we hadn't decided ahead of time that was kind of critical was we had decided that the story was going to take place on the train that we were on in that 19-hour span. That was going to be the guardrails of the story. And having those really tight parameters made it a real challenge.
So, Lindsay, how do you get involved in all of this? And you don't typically write in this sort of genre, do you?
Hey guys, good to talk to you. I wasn't sure. I'm just kind of here to be the girl on the show. I wore my pink so I would stand out. But no, they asked me if I was interested in. It's not really my genre, but they promised I could have like a dragon, which turned out to be a demon with wings, which is almost the same thing. But I was sold on the adventure. I'd been to Chicago, but I hadn't been to New Orleans, and I hadn't been on an overnight train. And I was so excited at the idea of like being in this little tiny 2-person bunk with Joanna that, I mean, if you have a crush on somebody from a podcast, what more could you want to spend the night together locked in this?
Who thinks we should sell a train ride with Dave?
Dave would be miserable.
Well, that's not part. Of course, that is part of
know.
Body, right? Seriously, Dave, your entire moving budget handled.
Look at Lindsay's dog staring out the window. Oh my God. Awesome.
There's 3 dogs on the bed. I'm in my parents' house, and this is the guest room, and it's their room. I'm kind of the guest. So that's what you get if you watch the video, is pretty dogs in the background.
So when you all got together and you're in the train compartment, did you immediately start writing? Or I know if I got together with 3 other writers, I'd be bullshitting for half and no work would actually get done.
One of us was Joanna.
Yeah.
I think Joanna was up at 4 a.m. every day, so she actually wrote. I think the rest of us were behind the whole time because I had that West Coast time zone thing going. So we did a little writing every day, but it did go from being like a 80,000 word novel to I think we ended up at 40,000 word novella. So it was fun, but we had a lot of fun doing the sightseeing and stuff too.
So how is this different from your normal writing process? And did you actually get anything out of it that you could bring to your normal writing process?
Well, I know for me, I'm always, every time I collaborate, I learn.
Hey, Jay, you're real quiet. Is there anything you can do to be closer to a mic or something like that?
Let me see. Is this any better? Get any better?
Yes, that's good. Much better.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I know for me, every time I collaborate, I learn something new. So, except for Zack, Zack was a total waste of time. But from Lindsay and Joanna, I was totally learning a ton of stuff. And you always bring that back, and you always kind of fold that into your own writing style. And so I think that was the same here. And it was funny because we all 4 of us have our own sort of go-to methods and strategies and stuff. And then you get together with 4 people in real time, face to face, and there's some compromise, and like you have to adjust. And there were some moments we had some tension, some things we had to work through. Like it wasn't just a party the whole time. It wasn't a vacation. But I think having that experience and learning and seeing how other people do stuff, that's always a great thing to help your own writing style.
Is that why Joanna's not here? She's pissed at you all?
She said there was no way she was coming anywhere near the 3 of us ever again.
No, I'd like to stay here just for a moment longer. And what is everybody's biggest takeaway? Because I agree, every single project makes us a little sharper, right? Even the ones that don't turn out the way we want them to. If we paid attention, there's a sharper tool there. So what was everybody's biggest takeaway from this whole project?
Zach, Lindsay, let you guys start.
I guess I'll start. You know, I mean, I definitely learned a lot about my writing through the whole thing, because, you know, Jay and I have pretty similar voices, and, you know, we're the closest to each other as far as genre, but Lindsay and Joanna were, you know, on the other side of the spectrum. But so for me, it was really interesting, like, because every one of us took a pass on the editing. So for me, it was really interesting to like get the feedback from, especially from Lindsay and Joanna, and you know, kind of learn some stuff about my writing, some things I could do a little better. And I've definitely taken some of that stuff, you know, further, you know, after that. So as far as my writing goes, that was definitely probably my biggest takeaway from the whole experience, from the book aspect of it.
For me, this was my first collaborative project. I've always said no before because I thought I'm not as much of a control freak as Joanna, but I'm definitely towards that end of the spectrum. I really wanted to edit the guy's stuff, but I didn't know how comfortable everybody would be with that. And it's difficult for me because I was coming in from a different type of, more of an epic fantasy background where you can take 100,000, 200,000 words to tell a story, or part one of a story. And here we were doing this little tight, fast-paced novella. But I think what I learned, though, this was a lot of fun, but some of the challenges were the fact that we were all writing our own scenes at the same time without necessarily having read everybody's stuff that had gone before it. I think on day 2, we finally got an outline together, and that helped things a lot. But if I was doing it again, I think I'd actually like to do it the way Jay and Joanna did their book, where she was in her time zone over in Europe and had written her section. I think that's how it went. And then Jay could, by the time he got up, you know, she could read over what he could read what she had done and then do his section, and then she'd get up and there's something to read. And that just seems like it'd be a little easier than what we did, but we did get the cool trip out of it. So no regrets.
It sounds really complicated. I mean, I admire the bravery, because I think collaborating with one other person is complicated, right? But balanced. I really like the one-on-one. But I mean, we've joked about it before, but I actually can't imagine the three of us, you know, me, Dave, and Johnny, all writing together in the same
being locked in a room.
Now, what I absolutely can see is world building. I think world building, you get a shit ton of people in the room. That's awesome, because you have more ideas, and you're talking about characters and constructs and elements, you know, to the world. And that, to me, I don't think it matters. I think then you have you know, 12, 20 people in a writer's room could be really cool. But 4 people in the same draft, and like you said, Lindsay, writing the same, because Dave and I did this with Yesterday's Gone and Whitespace, actually, and for Nevermore. We would write, you know, if there's 6 chapters, we'd each write 3, and they took place at, you know, different times. And that was complicated. But if we had 2 other people doing in that, because Dave would half the time, fucking Sean doesn't know what he's talking about. Does he not understand a timeline? And then he'd rewrite my shit.
Or why you give my character a sister? He didn't have a sister. What the hell are you doing?
Right. It's just a natural part of writing, is figuring stuff out, because I didn't know he had a sister until like I just
Sean's inventing backstories which conflict with whatever I had already chosen.
Right. So, and like that does seem like a lot to balance, even within a 40,000 word novella. And then the longer you get, the more opportunities you are to have for those collisions, right? So did you have any safeguards ahead of time, or was this just kind of a grand experiment and you just were all willing to see where it went?
Yeah, I think it was a grand experiment. And I know for me personally, the idea sort of came out of a joking tweet that I had with Lindsay about riding on a train and writing a book on a train. And that's kind of where the idea came from. And for me, it was about like trying something a little bit crazy, a little something beyond what I'd done before, just to see if I could do it. And I think what I got out of it was way more than the book or the story. Like the whole experience really changed me in a profound way. And I'm like being serious about that. Like I think having that experience, having that full immersion in the creative space was really incredible. And yeah, we had Lindsay and I wrote overlapping scenes at one point, and that's what kind of forced us to go to an outline on Tuesday night. And we had those kind of things, but like the big takeaway was like, realistically, this could have imploded. Like, I don't think the 4 of us thought we were going to come home pissed off and with nothing, but that could have happened. I mean, that was within the realm of possibility. So the fact that we were able to not only write this story, edit it, and get it to market, for me was a big win.
Dave, at any point during their process, did you want to email them and tell them that the beginning was really shitty for a rough draft?
Fuck you. Inside baseball. It's kind of
no. When we were writing Fiction Unboxed on day one, Dave sent us an email telling us, basically critiquing day one's rough draft right in front of 1,000 people live. Stuff. It was awesome.
That was some good stuff right there.
Tammy said he just didn't want you to fall down in public. He meant well. Yes.
Yes.
Like an overprotective mother.
He always means well. It's very sweet. Okay, so now if you could, reconstruct this all, what would you have done differently? I mean, just hearing the story from the outside, I would be like, outline day one, day zero.
Yeah.
Start with the outline.
Yeah.
Give Joanna more drinks.
Yeah, I think Sean, what you said, I think that we talked about that. I think the outline would be probably the biggest thing we would do. Because like Lindsay said, what ended up happening was, we recorded her podcast Tuesday night and then ended up like crash coursing, and the three of us stayed in the hotel room. I joined and went to sleep, and we wrote an outline. So I think we would definitely do that from the beginning. Another thing you brought up that was really interesting was, doing, not necessarily everyone drafting at the same time, and but having a collaborative project where people are world building together. That's something that Jay and I have also talked about when we possibly do this in the future. So, that's something else I would consider as well. So.
Yeah, I'll add too that really the two big takeaways from the storycraft side of it, and Zack and I are we're a little nuts. We are going to try this with other people. We're going to offer some retreats, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But the two things that we came out of it thinking, like, if we do this again, the other one was the genre. We thought like it was really asking a lot, and Lindsay was a great sport. I think Joanna's stuff is much closer to what Zack and I write, and as Zack mentioned, Lindsay's stuff is not, and she was a great sport and really open-minded and kind of dove in and did it, but it made it hard for the four of us, because if you have four people writing in the same genre or subgenre, it just inherently know all the conventions, sort of which rules you have to keep, which ones you can break, you pacing, tone, like all of that stuff is sort of second nature if you're all in the same genre. So I would add that that's going in a second time, yes, the outline, but also sort of agreeing on a pretty defined genre.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So you're talking about
sorry, go ahead, Dave.
So you're talking about doing a retreat and stuff, and like that's something that we also love doing, and especially that sort of energy that you get when we did the first world building summit for Dream Engine. That energy is just an awesome thing, and you have all these people collaborating to make something better than the sum of the parts. I think. Tell us a little more about what you guys are planning to do and when, and are you opening it to other authors? How exactly is that going to work?
Yeah, I'll shoot you guys a link so you can drop it in the show notes. It's a little long. It's the authorcopilot.com/retreat. What Zack and I are doing is we're not sure we're going to do it yet, and this is not something we want to scale or make like a full business out of. But we felt so empowered, and like the energy you just described, we felt, and we wanted to offer that and to other writers. And so what we're thinking about, and this is still really rough early stages, but if people want to get in, they can drop us their contact info at that link. But we're thinking about replicating the trip that we did. So we're thinking about a train trip from Chicago to New Orleans with a maximum of 8 people, like 2 teams of 4. And then we're also thinking about a destination only one in Nashville, which is where Zack lives and it's kind of centrally located in the US. So that's kind of where it's really early right now, but that's kind of what we're thinking.
Okay, if that doesn't work, might I suggest a U-Haul in Miami to Jacksonville? 8 writers in the back, no air conditioning. August.
All right, so
that drive sucks. I've made that drive several times.
What I'm hearing here is that like the biggest value here is just taking the time to connect in person. And that I think it's so easy to write in isolation and to, like spend all of our lives in Scrivener or whatever we're writing in. And it's actually being with other people. And we've always found that. I mean, Johnny and I now are lucky enough to have story meetings in person every week. And, I think Dave, every time he's been down here, has really felt that value, and that it changes you as an artist. It changes you as a creator. If you're going to very intentionally, I mean, think about how much intention there was. You had to get on a train together in Chicago, spend time together, and then arrive in your destination and spend time together and create something from nothing. And that's, I mean, instead of just, I mean, you said it, Jay, instead of having a book that you created an experience that you'll never forget that profoundly changed you. And that couldn't have happened without a plan and an intention and then going out to do it. And so what are kind of the things that drove each of you to make that decision? What made it something that I'm willing to take this adventure? Because Lindsay, I think at the beginning, you kind of raised your hand and said, I really just wanted an adventure. Like I wasn't really in this for the collaboration. It was just the collaboration was my ticket into the adventure, right? So did you guys all have slightly different reasons? I'd love to hear what your reasons were for making this happen.
Yeah, I actually would, like I said, I'd never really been interested in collaborating before because I always think, oh, nobody can do kind of dialogue and humor the way I do, or very few people. And I know my readers, that's kind of what they expect from me. Like anybody can write plots better than I do and build world build better than I do. But, I think it can be hard if you are like your humor and voice is really strong to blend it with other people's. It ended up being great for this because we all did our own characters and their point of view. So we weren't
I think mixed POVs would be the only way to make this happen without somebody going through and rewriting everything pretty much, right? To unify it.
Yeah, so, and that was the main reason I came, was for the adventure. And it was really cool. You were saying like the in-person, what you get out of like brainstorming together. We had so many elements from our trip that appeared in the story.
Of course, yeah.
Like the ticket-taking lady was such a Nazi. She was like forbidding people to come in the first class lounge to use the bathroom and checking tickets and everything. And every single one of us.
I remember when the Nazis wouldn't let the Jews in the first class. It was just like,
who had 2:31 Central Time?
No, we all piled on this lady though, and it was really funny reading it back because seriously, every single one of us like called her a bitch in this draft. Pretty much. It was hilarious.
The guy who was like our cabin steward or whatever you call it, who was apparently a comics fan, and the guys got to know him. He died, of course, but
yeah, we killed him.
Everybody pretty much died.
I thought you just meant in life.
No. He got a
you see
heroic
Dave
death.
lean forward.
He got a heroic death, and
now that's
so
a trip.
Fun.
Yeah, Kate points out something here, right? You just don't get that in traditional publishing. Now, even if you have the best publisher, agent, and editor, you're still essentially on your own. But I would take that further and say, like, let's take a moment to celebrate being indies, because where else could you just hook up 4 writers who just decide to take this trip and then their co-created thing is for sale a month later? That situation itself couldn't exist in traditional publishing, and that's really nimble. That's really cool. I love that.
Yeah. Now, are you all going to write in the same? Well, I know Zack and Jay are. Lindsay, are you going to continue to write in the world, or do you need another train trip to convince you?
Joanna said the Orient Express was pretty cool, so I might be down for that if American Demon Hunters went to a different continent. I'm not planning to do more just because it is a little out of my wheelhouse and what I usually write, but I did appreciate that doing the dark fantasy, the guys were really open. Jay was like, do whatever you want, make whatever demons from whatever South America or whatever. So it was pretty easy for me to jump in. I think people might have to be a little more careful and put a little more planning into the world building if they were doing something like epic fantasy or science fiction, where you gotta, are you doing a magic system, or, are we making a whole new planets and cultures? That would be definitely more challenging. So I think this is an easier way to go for a collaboration.
Yeah, Kate adds, writers have been bullshitted for way too long into believing that they have to be alone, but collaboration is a natural state for creatives. Yeah, I mean, for us, it's kind of the lifeblood of Sterling and Stone, and we're doubling down on that. Even even the mastermind, even what we're doing with Stone Table is now about collaborative business building, because and we're really doubling down when it comes to fiction later on. Story Shop only exists because we need to have more collaborative tools. And so I love this collaborative experiment. It really does seem like it was just the right time and the right place. And you guys all had this crazy energy and created this thing. And that's exciting. That's how you grow and learn.
It also answers a question that we hear a lot, because a lot of people look at what we're doing, especially early on when there weren't as many people collaborating in the indie space. And they're like, well, how the hell do I find my Sean or my Johnny or my Dave or whatever? And
find your Dave outside your window.
Right. Yeah. It is such a crapshoot. And I think organizing stuff like this is like, it's a no-brainer for people that, this is like, you can go and meet people and find like in events, like when we had Smart Artists, a lot of people like hooked up there, not literally, but I mean hooked up.
Too many stories, Dave. Would you like to elaborate? There was a lot of alcohol.
Yes, but I mean, they found their co-authors, they found their writing partners, and I know Jay and Zack are writing together. What's your new series called?
Final Awakening is the name of the series. The first book's called Dawn. And it came out last week. So
okay, and it's doing very well, I saw, and I picked it up. I read the first chapter. I like what I've read so far. I only got it yesterday.
I was gonna say the Wayne scene's in the second chapter, so you got to keep going.
I love how you ended. I love how you ended chapter 1. That was great. Where the guy sees the person. So that's
wow.
Well, I don't want to spoil. I don't want to spoil it.
Hey, I know he read it now at least.
Do you remember that part where the guy saw the person? That shit.
He sees somebody from his past. Okay, and I did read enough of chapter 2 to find out, because I had to. I couldn't, because I said I'm going to just read this chapter. So I just want to get a feel for it for the show. And I was like, well, fuck, now I got to go and read the rest. So you guys collaborate. Tell me some of how it works for you two collaborating usually, and what are some of the things that your strengths and weaknesses, and how do you determine that whether or not you'll be a good match for one another?
I think you should take this one, Zack.
Okay, yeah. So we actually write. I would, just from what I know from listening to you guys for 3 years now or whatever. Like, I think that we're very close to what Johnny and Sean do. So. Mm-hmm. Jay is like loves doing revisions, and I hate doing revisions. Like I cannot stand it. And Jay likes to rough draft, but it's not his favorite part of the process. So, generally what we do is we have a story meeting. We come up with some general ideas what we want to do. Jay writes the whole outline. Jay's really into the story grid method of outlining. So he writes a whole outline with the story grid, passes it to me. I write the whole first draft, go through it usually real quick once or twice, and then pass it right to him. And then, so that's kind of how our process works. Like I said, it's very similar to what Johnny and Sean do.
Sounds similar.
Yeah, pretty similar. So,
and I'll add too that Zack and I both have a background of being musicians, and being a musician. If you're in a band if you're not a solo artist, you have to collaborate. That's just how music is made. So we're bringing a lot of the skill set that we've honed for decades to this, and the fact that we're both into the same type of music is just sort of icing on the cake. But we've built those skills around collaborations because we've done them in other mediums.
Yeah, no, I love that parallel. For us, it's film, right? Who makes a film alone? That's exactly happened. Yeah. It has to be.
Well, I do, but there are.
No, we don't want to hear about your lonely films. And the sad thing about Dave's films is they always start with 2 people and end with 1.
One in a corpse.
Wow, this show speaks of train wrecks.
I don't even remember what we were talking about.
Well, Lindsay, now that you've had this collaborative experience and you enjoyed it, are you going to collaborate in the future?
Well, if Joanne ever wants to come back and share a little train cabinet with me, of course I'd be more. But maybe I've actually been watching what I just launched Kindle Worlds, and that was sort of like a mini step into collaboration. I wasn't really working on their stories, but they were using my world and asking some questions. And that made me kind of interested in the idea of like Michael Anderle, what he's doing, taking some co-writers on and doing stories in the world he's already established. So I don't think I'm going to do it tomorrow, but I'm keeping it open as a possibility in the future, especially if I can get somebody else to handle the accounting for sending out checks and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It does seem interesting. And I think if I could be kind of the one, like it was my world and I can control it, I'd be especially open to it.
World, Lindsay.
Well,
Yeah, I do think. Sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
how did the Kindle Worlds experience work for you?
It's been interesting. It's probably been more work than I thought it would be. I kind of thought like I'd write my story Bible and just put it up and then that's it. But
do they approach you? I mean, like,
oh yeah,
some of the
Amazon
basics for people that don't know anything.
Amazon will ask you if they're interested. Basically, I don't think you can apply or anything.
Right.
And this was my only series I've actually launched into Kindle Unlimited or KDP Select. So I don't know if all of the worlds are in KDP Select, but I wouldn't be surprised. And it's been interesting. I think that because right now the actual writers cannot put their stories into Kindle Unlimited, that's a real bummer. And also they're only for sale in the US. So that's another reason. I think if I did it again with another world, I would just kind of keep the control myself. And then that way they could put it in KDP Select and it would be for sale all over the world. So it's been interesting. No regrets. It's a learning experience, all these things. What was the original question? How does it work? Yeah, so I haven't really gotten much money yet. It just launched last month. So we'll see if, they don't have as good of sales dashboard as the KDP Select or KDP dashboard. So we just kind of look at their sales rankings to see how they're doing.
So do you make money from other writers writing in the world? Is that how it works?
Yeah, it's basically like on a $3.99 novel. They set the price. Amazon's you do it their way. You get 35%, the author gets 35%, and then Amazon takes their 30%. So it's about what you would expect. I don't think any of these are selling so much I'm going to be like, oh, well, I get to buy that house in California that I've been eyeing now.
Does it boost your canon series though?
Yeah, if you notice spillover, basically.
Probably not. It's probably the other way around. Like you want your series to be selling well so that people will find their books and sell them. I think the one I've seen really doing well is Nick Webb's. He's really been amazing at keeping his original series selling, and I always see his Kindle World stuff out there too. So we're going to see. I want to take my series wide, so we'll see how that affects it. I know you guys have talked a lot about wide versus KU and that sort of thing.
Only every day.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's hard when you start out wide and have readers on the other stores and they're just not pleased with you because your books aren't available. So we will see how it goes in the future. But I don't regret it. But like I said, I think I would do differently in the future. I think I'd want to keep full control and just kind of do maybe collaborative projects or even just let other authors write in the world and say, sure. Because I think that's how he started. I think he was just like, yeah, go ahead, write and I didn't even know that was possible. But as indies, you're the one that makes the rules.
Yeah,
like
we make the rules.
So you just say, sure, go ahead,
Yeah. Okay. So I have a question, a micro question, and then something more global. So when you guys were kind of framing this out, did you know ahead of time? Okay, this is going to be select. This is going to be wide. Did you have that conversation, or did it not? I mean, of course you would have figured it out, but did it not really matter because it was about the exercise of creating it? So what was that conversation like? And then just globally, I think it's worth a small discussion. How do you do that when you're finding a collaborator? It's not just do you collaborate on genre and art and expectations, but what does it look like business-wise? What do you want with this art that you're creating, both long-term and short-term?
Jay, you should take that one probably.
Yeah, I from what I can remember, and my memory is already getting foggy because it feels like so long ago, but from what I can remember, we didn't intentionally set that up ahead of time, but we did discuss it. And we talked about the pros and cons of going wide versus launching in select, and no one really dug their heels in. There weren't like any heated debates about it. But I think one of the variables that sort of became the tipping point was the rest of the American Demon Hunter stuff is in select. And so what we had decided was, well, we'll launch this book in select with the rest because I eventually want to fold it into the American Demon Hunters box set, not right away because it'll cannibalize sales of this book, but eventually. And then I think what we decided was when the term was up towards the end for all the American Demon Hunters titles towards the end of summer, then we would revisit the conversation about going wide.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, okay, so each of you, how important do you think it is with a collaborator? I guess, Lindsay, you're not really thinking much of collaborating except in the right circumstances. So I guess this is mostly
only with Joanna on a train a train trip that she could ride off to another country.
And only if I'm in full control and it's my world and I say what goes.
All right, we got it. So Jay and Zach, when you're looking for collaborators, because you both seem very open to collaboration and kind of like them, like you're treating it like a new business model to explore, which is interesting. So when you're looking for that collaborator, I imagine that the business side is as important to gel with as the creative side. And you probably put that a little more front and center than maybe most creatives might. I think that it'd be really a natural tendency for people to get together and say, hey, you like to write and I like to write and we both want to make money as indies. Let's party. But right, that's it. So talk a little bit about your vetting process there and what you think is just good practice for indies.
Zach, you want to talk a little bit about Molten Universe and sort of what we're headed towards with that?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that. We can also, before we go into that, I will say too, like Jay and I mentioned, like, we're talking about doing the retreats, but we're actually talking to two other authors who, like, we can't name right now, but we're talking to two other authors about doing this same thing again.
Stephen King and Dean Koontz. Oh,
Spoiler.
Nailed it. So, but no, it's authors people would have heard of who listen to the show. So, but it's going to be more aligned with the genre we write in. And these are smart business people and stuff too. So, but the big thing there is that, and Jay brought this up earlier, but we're talking about doing, writing something to market this time. So, instead of having four people who kind of have mixed audiences. So we already share a lot of the same fans with these two other writers that we're currently talking to. So, but yeah, on that, but Jay, do you want to kind of talk about Molten Universe for a second?
Yeah. So Sean, you're talking about sort of vetting and how we're going to bring people in. And one of the things that Zack and I talked about doing a few months ago that we're in early stages of is we've created an entity called Molten Universe Media. And for all intents and purposes, it's our own press right now. And we're hopefully, so what we're going to do in the next 6 to 9 months is really build out our catalog together. We want to get a nice core group of titles that sort of define the kind of stories we want to tell. And then we're going to start bringing in other people. That's going to be like phase 2. And right now it's kind of open-ended. We want to be part of the creative process with people. We know we can help out people with the marketing and publishing side. I've seen even as late as this week, like what Zack did with our Dawn launch was absolutely amazing. I mean, his knowledge of sort of the algorithms and the keywords and discoverability and what that's done for our title, I've seen that now firsthand. And I think that's something we can help other people with. And so I think the near term is we want to get our catalog set and we want to get our sort of brand established. And then phase 2, maybe later this year, starting to bring in other people.
how are you going to, one of the things you don't really want to talk too much about probably is like when you offer something like this, you're probably going to get a lot of people that can't really write that might want to jump at the chance because they'll see it as a shortcut to getting their stuff more known, but they're not yet ready. They're not at that level. Are you prepared for that?
Well, we're not initially planning on taking submissions. So our plan is like, we're going to go out and approach people and we're going to start with, we have some people in mind that we know that are kind of in our network. And that's kind of where we start, where we plan on starting is not by taking submissions. So we kind of don't have to worry about what you're talking about. So.
Okay, well that's good.
Because I don't want to deal with that either.
That's the thing that scares the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Ever doing any of this sort of stuff. Plus all the business stuff, and I mean, we were in a box set with Jay, and that did really well. And Jay handled the whole business end of it, and I assume.
Yeah, that was really professional, dude. That was really, really professional.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
I assume he didn't pocket everything.
No, Jay absolutely has his shit together in this context for sure.
That he does for sure.
Yeah, and it's great. It seems like you guys are really in parallel there. So that's it. And just to revisit this collaboration thing, because I mean, I think even Lindsay, she's not that into the idea necessarily for herself, but she can clearly see the trend here. And it is where things seem to be going. There is a wave. And so it's that constant question is, how do I find my collaborator? And it's, how do you find any other person you get in a relationship? Right, Jay, you've collaborated with a lot
Craigslist.
Right. But it's a little bit like dating or using Craigslist for Dave.
And you might get murdered, but hey.
Yeah,
Right.
and I've said a number of times, I have there for every collaboration I have 3 or 4 that died or that went down in flames or didn't end well. Like it's a messy process.
You want to trash any of those people on air?
Right. Kate Morgan
Tell us why
says someone needs to invent Tinder for writers. Right.
Render.
Yeah, because you once you do find that collaborative partner, it's just easier to make magic. It is. And you know, both Johnny and Dave, I'm very fortunate to have really great collaborators. And even though like our company is really collaborative. So even right now we're coming up with detailed marketing plans for our entire catalog. That's a collaborative process with Tammy. You know, all of our funnel design right now and all the stuff we're doing with the Stone Table is very much a collaborative process with Christine. It is, we are treating that like art we're making together. And that means that everybody has their hands in the clay. And I do think that our industry is going to understand that more and more, especially as we move into transmedia and these other types of, it just makes sense because somebody writing a graphic novel in your world and building a video game in your world while you're building the epic series, you need to be able to collaborate and share those world ideas. And I think the tools are going to get better, but also our culture is going to get better to where that's something that we actually think about and try to, you know, emulate.
Yeah, and you guys talk a lot about television shows and screenplays, and it would be ridiculous to think that you could watch a television episode of a series that was written by one person in a room.
Yeah, never happened.
It doesn't happen. So it's not that different for writers, I think.
No, it's just that we don't have it in this context, and it's learned behavior.
And I think just real quick, just to swing back around and say something else too, like, and I know, you know, Sean, you were kind of talking about this earlier, but like if you have the opportunity and you can do something like this in person, like that makes such a huge difference. You know, even if it's just like you guys were saying, like sitting around a table and just world building, because, you know, kind of like we were saying earlier, the experience of this, like, yeah, we have a book and it's going to be for sale for a long time and that's great. But I mean, this experience, especially for Jay and I, was like pretty life-changing. So, I mean, being able to be on this trip with, you know, Lindsay and Joanna, who've been doing this for a long time. I mean, I'll be honest, and this will make Dave a little nervous probably, but I actually came back and quit my day job when I got off the trip. So, I want to preface with saying that it was coming anyway. I was planning on doing it a few months from now, but I got back.
Accelerated your timeline.
Yeah, exactly. I got back and I was just like, how the hell am I supposed to go back to my job? And, you know, my wife was completely supportive. My wife was like, it's time, you need to do it. So, I mean, I literally came back. I was, the only reason I didn't quit the week I got back is because my boss was on vacation. So, these trips can literally be life-changing in the whole experience.
It make you do something rash. And
Zach, if you don't mind my asking, Zach, how prepared are you for that? Is it a huge risk, a medium risk, or a little risk?
Well, I'm on my 3rd week full time, so hopefully, I guess it doesn't really matter now. but no, I've been planning on this for a long time, and you know, I've been real open about this with other media stuff. But you know, my wife has a very good job. She makes good money. We don't have debt. Like our house is the only debt we have. We have a lot of money in savings and stuff, so we were very prepared for this.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't. This is nothing I just. Exactly. Yeah, this is nothing I just rushed into. We were very prepared for this. You know, I have a little girl. I have a girl that's almost 3 years old. So that makes it that's scary, you know.
You are putting her in jeopardy.
I am putting her in jeopardy, but no, I was definitely, this isn't something I necessarily just leaped into this experience. It was really the dinner the last night. We had this dinner for like 3 hours last night, and Joanna had a few drinks, and she basically looked at me and told me I was living in fear. And I was like, oh, okay. And basically like told me like, you need to go home and quit your job. And I was like,
or pay Dave taxes.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you imagine Dave taxes?
Joanna in person is definitely an experience. Everybody,
Yeah.
She's so awesome, and I felt like I met one of my soulmates while we were talking about death and horrible things, and it was just but it wasn't.
Apparently, you're gonna have to fight Lindsay for her.
It wasn't it wasn't a gloomy conversation. It was a very thoughtful, intelligent conversation that. It's the sort of thing that you never ever get like meeting online like this. In person, it's like a completely different thing. It's like a deeper level there, and it does feel more real. And I can see, obviously, it changed Zack enough to go crazy and quit his job.
Yeah, and we ended up in the Museum of Death in New Orleans.
I was going to say that. You should have seen her face.
Did Joanna rent a room there?
You should have seen her face. It was pretty awesome. So
she was like, she had a checklist. I have, I don't have, I have, I don't have.
The first text I got from her in Chicago when I got there was, "Hey, I'm at the International Museum of Surgical Sciences. Do you want to join me?" I was like, okay, you know. So, but yeah. So
yeah, if you ever get that text from Joanna, just say yes and go.
She's awesome though. So.
All right, everybody. So as the Wrangler, I think I will bring this one to a close. So what do we want people to know about? What
Tell us about your.
What do you want to send everybody? Yeah.
I think American Demon Hunter Sacrifice, if you want to see what the final product looks like, that's on Amazon. And if doing one of these and you're not the one who wants to coordinate it and you think you might want to do one, the authorcopilot.com/retreat, and let us know you're interested, and Zack and I will be in touch.
Was that the author copilot? Or
yes, the author copilot.
The authorcopilot.com/retreat.
Yes.
And definitely buy their new book. What was that again? So Zack will actually be able to afford to feed his kid.
Yeah, that was The Final Awakening. Dawn is the name of the book.
All right. And Lindsay, what are you doing right now? Well, not this second.
I was actually writing a smutty scene before I jumped on this call for my pen name. So it was natural to then go join Five Guys. But no, I don't really have anything to plug, but I just, I think it was a fun experience, and I think everybody should give the collaboration thing a try. I would say that when you're looking for your soulmate here to collaborate with, I think you do need to commit to maybe doing a series or at least a trilogy together. I don't think we're going to sell a ton of books, and I think most collaborations I see don't sell hugely well because they just do one book, and we've talked about how hard it is to market.
Well, yeah, solo people can't do that well with one book.
Right, and it's the same. I think you want to do a series or maybe 3 books or something to really give it a shot. So find somebody that's willing to commit to that long, and good luck. Have fun with it.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for joining us. It was good to see you all. And thanks to you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.